Okay, class. So now we are back with another important aspect of the homeostasis, and here we would be talking about the osmoregulation. And what we mean by the osmoregulation is that when we will try to be maintaining the level of the water that we have got within the blood plasma, so this is termed as osmoregulation. Now, the thing is that why do we need to be regulating the amount of the water in the blood plasma or in the tissue fluid? Because you see that if I have these tissues with me, and if outside of the tissues, if the water level is increasing, then by the osmosis, an excessive amount of the water would enter into your cells and they would burst. And likewise, if on the outside of the cells or the tissues, if the water level is falling below the set value, then ultimately within the cells, the water level would increase, and when the water would escape out of the cells or the tissues, so these cells they would shrink. So either of these two situations I cannot afford. So this is very important that we try to be maintaining the osmoregulation. But before we go with the maintenance of the osmoregulation, the situation is that this homeostatic control it would involve the osmoreceptors, and these osmoreceptors we have got within the part of the brain, and that is the hypothalamus with us. And we would involve another gland, and that gland would be the posterior pituitary gland, and then at the end we would have these collecting ducts of the kidneys. Because you see that my body is on the verge of losing a lot of water in the urine, so we actually have to hit the nephrons of the kidneys where I would be actually try to be maintaining or controlling that how much amount of the water do I need to be keeping it within my blood plasma. So for now, you see that here we have the hypothalamus having the osmoreceptors, and here we have got another gland attached with it, and that gland would be the posterior pituitary gland. And if I were to take you toward the kidney situation, so in the excretion, we have seen that they were the kidneys. And in the kidneys, we have these nephrons, and in the nephrons, the end part that we have got over here. So this would be the collecting duct with us, and in the collecting duct, the urine is flowing, and in the urine, we have got a lot of water in it. And over there, the problem was that if I were required to be reabsorbing the water out of the fluid that we have in the lumen of the collecting duct, then there has to be the availability of the hormone, and that was the antidiuretic hormone. And if we do not have the antidiuretic hormone, then the water out of the filtrate that we have in the collecting duct, so it cannot move or it cannot pass back into the blood capillaries that we have here. So now we will try to relate these three things with their specific conditions. So here we have got this condition number one to be understanding that by some mean or the other, the water level in your blood plasma is falling below the set value, and there could be multiple causes of it. Like if your fluid intake was less, or if you had the vomiting, or if you had the diarrhea, so for sure in the blood plasma, the amount of the water would fall below the set value. Now, this is the stimulus, and it would be detected by the osmoreceptors that we have got in the brain's hypothalamus. I guess if you were to look on this diagram, so here we have this pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland at the back is controlled by the hypothalamus, at how much amount of the ADH it would be releasing or not releasing. So after the osmoreceptors in these hypothalamus they got activated, now they would compel the posterior pituitary gland that we have here to be releasing more of the antidiuretic hormone. And more of the antidiuretic hormone would now come to the collecting ducts of the kidneys with the help of the blood plasma. And when the ADH has come to the collecting duct of the nephrons, it would cause more reabsorption of the water back into the blood from the collecting ducts of the nephron. And as a result, the urine produced would be in the less volume and it would be more concentrated. And when we have reabsorbed more of the water back into the blood plasma, so my water level that I have got in the blood plasma, so it would be increased. If I were to show you this diagram, So you see that more ADH has come from the posterior pituitary, and it has binded with the protein receptor that we have got within the collecting duct. And when there would be the binding of this antidiuretic hormone with the protein receptors, then as a result or the consequence of that, more water would be reabsorbed back into the blood, we say, and by that the water level would be elevated. On the other way around, the opposite would happen, that by some mean or the other, if my water level in the blood plasma is rising above the set value, maybe that I have taken a lot of fluid intake. And usually this also happens in the winter where we have got less loss of the water by the sweating process, so we actually don't even sweat. So the water level would increase, and now I have to get rid of more or excessive water out of my body. So again, this elevated level of the water that we have in the blood plasma, so this again would be detected by the osmoreceptors, but now the posterior pituitary would be compelled to not release ADH. And when the ADH is not released and this is not coming toward the collecting duct of the nephron, then as a result, the water would not be reabsorbed back into the blood from the collecting ducts of the nephron, and now the urine produced would be in more volume and it would be dilute. So if I were to show you this diagram, again, I have got this end part of the nephron, which is the collecting duct. Here we have got the surrounding blood capillaries. Now, the level of the water in the blood plasma here, it was already high. So less ADH or no ADH would come to bind with these protein receptors. And by that, we would not be compelling the water that has to be lost in the urine to be reabsorbed back into the blood. And by that, I would lower the amount of the water that I have got in my blood plasma in the form of the urine out of the body. So I hope you would be clear with the aspect of the homeostasis, and that was osmoregulation with us for today.